Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Eye of the Watchers podcast, where we give you all the information you need to get hyped about League of Legends esports. I am Sam, your host for the day, evening, afternoon, whatever it is. Sam, aka Just Casual. Here I have with me Manny, aka Manster.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Like Sam said, I hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever.
whatever indeed. Yep, that's the beauty of podcasts. You can basically listen to wherever you want, wherever you want. So we're giving you the information wherever convenient to you, right? I think that's our big selling point, or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
That was awkward. But what's not awkward is a topic we're going to be talking about today. So yes, we have talked about All-Stars already a little bit before, but since our first episode, groups have been revealed, the schedule has been revealed, so we get to talk a little bit more about the nitty-gritty, kind of talking about how the groups were decided, what matches you probably want to watch if you don't want to commit 5 hours over, 5 hours, 10 hours, 15, 20 hours or so. 5 hours a day, I think, to watch all this stuff, unless you really want to, which I probably will be. Manny, I'm guessing, will probably be as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to put in all my time and effort to watch all of All-Stars.
Couch potatoes for real this weekend. But anyway, yeah, All-Stars is this weekend, so we're going to tell you which matches you probably want to watch and give our predictions of how All-Stars is going to go and what we're really excited about. So let's just jump into it. Let's talk about how the groups are decided. Manny, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, sure. So groups, in case you are a veteran, joining us, if you know about the EULCS, how they chose their groups, I think it's technically called a snake draft. That's how the groups themselves were decided. So Group A had, the best team in the world, aka LCK, because they won Worlds. They were immediately allotted to that. And so then at that point, they asked the LCK who they wanted to send to Group B, aka like the second best team, or pretty much a team they didn't want to verse. And it continued onward like that with each, prior picking the other team or the other group's team. So it ended up being the Group A has the LCK, the LMS, the EULCS, and the Turkish League. Group B finishes with the LPL, NALCS, GPL, and CB LOL, which is Brazil. And the GPL would be, in this case, Vietnam or Southeast Asia. But
yeah, just a little correction. We realized when we were talking about it before, we said the LMS was, I think we said Thailand or something like that. We're a little off on that one. It includes a few regions in the like Taiwan, Macau,
and Hong Kong.
What was the third one? That's another region. Oh, Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So they broke off the GPL before. GPL used to be just kind of like Southeast Asia. It's broken up. LMS is its own LMS region, whatever that means, but it's basically Hong Kong, Taiwan,
and Macau.
Yeah.
And then the GPL has technically like a bunch of LCSs or like series consisting of, at that point there we go with like Vietnam, Thailand, but I guess that some way like they all have like a huge like super league, I'm guessing. But regardless, Vietnam is the team that the series that ended up winning their own tournament to choose the all-star representatives of the region.
So it's super interesting because everyone else has like a hodgepodge of the all-stars and basically making the dream team, while the GPL is sending their full 5-man team of whoever the best team is of the region, of the whole big region, because it's a very small region and underdeveloped or lacking experience compared to the other major regions.
Yep.
So that's why this one is kind of a weird exception to the rules, which kind of also brings a little bit of maybe an advantage to All-Stars. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think something that's very interesting to know as well is that in case you don't know who GPL, who the Vietnam representatives are, it's pretty much a selection of the Gigabyte Marines, which are crowd favorites, I'd say, like from this past year. Everyone's been loving them, and then Young Generation, which is like the second tier team for the region. But notably, they have Levi. I think a lot of people are gonna have their eyes on him because he's just a crazy player to look at. So it's very interesting, and I think that's a perfect segue to matches to watch, right? I think, like what we were talking about before, is it's really difficult to sometimes, like, especially if you're a casual watcher, it's like, man, maybe I don't want to watch every single region, right? If you're from NA, I do recommend watching all of NA's matches. If you can't, that's understandable. But here are some of the big matches you should watch, definitely from the group stage of the All-Star event. I mean, we did have here, me and Sam had talked about this before, that, I mean, again, North America, they do start off the tournament against the Brazil All-Stars. Granted, maybe they're not necessarily the best. I think they still have strong showing. They have some interesting players, but NA is going to be playing against them, so it'll be interesting to see truly how good the NA team could be, right? I think with any All-Star event, it's like, will these players actually mesh together? Will they actually be like good? Maybe we see some crazy picks, right? Zoe's enabled. We have like the preseason patch, and it's gonna be finally a time where we could see it in North American time, like without having to be awake at odd hours of the day, watching everyone else play it. So I think it's gonna be super interesting. The second big match is going to be the Korean All-Stars versus the European LCS All-Stars. I think like the biggest thing is that we have a couple members of Misfits who nearly were able to defeat SKT. So
they made the gods bleed.
Yeah, they made the gods bleed a lot. And I think
bleed and sweat.
And I think it's going to be really interesting to see, how the LCK is able to respond with, again, the super team with still having Faker as the only SKT representative going. So I think it's going to be definitely very interesting. EU is just pretty much Misfits and Fnatic with the addition of Jankos. But
First Blood King.
The First Blood King. So after that, I want to say that I know we've been talking about NA, but NA versus GPL, I think first of all, I think you should be watching the GPL regardless.
Okay, actually, before we go on, I want to talk about that first matchup that we talked about, LCK versus EU. So there's a ton of hype, like we mentioned. We do have to remember, like, we always get excited about like taking down LCK, right? The Korean teams, because they are by far the favorites over everyone. And every time you doubt them, they just like smash it in your face, and like no one ever gets a win off of LCK. We're hoping, like we said, Misfits did take down SKT, which is one of the best Korean teams, but then SKT did get stomped by Samsung during the finals. So it's like, oh, who did they really beat? Did they beat the best Koreans? It's like very questionable. But at the same time, when we talk about Misfits and their performance, Ignar was a huge part of bringing out these crazy support picks. So hopefully we can see some really cool support picks, while we usually see Korea, stick to a very confident understanding of what they believe the meta is. And Kespa Cup just finished, I believe, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So they have just gotten over their own tournament where they're like, okay, we probably have a good understanding of what this preseason meta looks like. And, Europe hopefully will not try to go toe to toe with them in like this even meta, but bring out some crazy picks going into that. That being said, all these things, we don't know how serious people are in these 5v5s. I think a lot of these pros really, really put emphasis on the 1v1s if they are participating in it. So when it comes to the 5v5s, they probably haven't been practicing a ton. They're probably just going into it a lot more overconfident too. And the Korean team looks absolutely stacked and terrifying. So,
we can
hope.
There's always the hope, right? We always talk about the gap closing. I think we saw the closest of the gap ever closing was this Worlds, right? But at the same time,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, like it was a sluggish SKT. You know, was it really as? I mean, I won't take any credit away from Misfits. I think what they did was
Oh yes,
absolutely
yes, yes.
amazing. Don't
Mhm.
get me wrong; I'm not discrediting them whatsoever. But
Yeah.
truly, like, would they have been able to do that same feat against SKT at its prime? Right? Like, maybe,
Mhm,
maybe
mhm.
not. Right? We're not sure. We can't necessarily do that. So I think
Yeah.
like this being the second match of the tournament, it's gonna be awesome, right?
Yep. And again, or not again, but when we talk about these pro players that are playing against each other, especially in the major regions, even in some of the minor regions, when it comes to mechanics, not everyone's not that far from each other. Korea just surpasses everyone in their macro understanding of this game and probably their coaching staff and their training and stuff like that. But again, you're playing with people that you don't play with regularly. So who knows how their macro turns out? Who knows how poor the communications are behind the scenes when it comes to these kind of dream teams and all-star teams? So, like Power of Evil could win the mid lane matchup and then just for some reason uh they throw it or LCK throws it. Like who knows what happens because these macro calls are so important to professional play and you're not going to see amazing macro here in All-Stars.
Right, right, and you know, again, it's not necessarily same teams. It's all about meshing together, right? So I think it's a whole array of different things. There was also an interview today at the recording of this episode that was released with Faker, and they asked him like, "Oh, Faker, you know, like, you know, how does it feel being like the only SKT member?" He's like, it's kind of awkward. It's like, oh, really? It's like, yeah, you know, especially a little awkward with Ambition because, you know, he beat me in the finals. And it's like super lighthearted, but like, and funny, you know, he's like, but we'll be fine. You know, we're professionals. And they asked him, it's like, oh, do you have any interesting picks? And this goes back to like, again, the whole aspect of maybe there will be some very interesting picks we see, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, hopefully, I'll be able to make the crowd happy with the picks, you know, with Faker
Ooh.
patented picks. So hopefully,
Ooh.
we see some interesting stuff. I really hope we see Zoe. She's absolutely broken, you know, whatever. I think it'd
Yeah,
be
if she's not banned.
really fun to see her at least in a couple games before she gets like perma banned, or maybe she just looks awful and they don't ever even pick her. Right? There's always that possibility. But
Yep, yep.
I think first two matches definitely worth the watch. I mean, if you do have the time, I do want to say like you should definitely watch the majority of this tournament. I think most matches are definitely fun at the very least. Um, so you know it's very interesting. So then the next one is that I wanted to talk about is going to be day two, which is North America versus GPL. Um, in the first major tournament, international tournament that we saw, the Gigabyte Marines attack and destroy the NA representatives in TSM.
They ruined our chances.
They did, but you know, it was the first time, and it was the Gigabyte Marines, and everyone's like, "Who is this team?" It was crazy. They were wild, you know, and
Fun to watch. Very fun to
so fun
watch.
to watch. So, I mean, as much as I recommend, if you're from NA watching all of NA's like games, I also highly recommend if you get the chance to watch them with GPL games, to definitely give them a watch. I mean, they took Longzhou Gaming to like the absolute extreme. They ended up losing, but man, was it close, you know? Like, so
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think it's a fun like series to watch. Again, we've discussed NA. I think people are saying NA has cheated a bit because you know you can only send two representatives from your league. They technically have three because Mike Young joined TSM. So you know people have been joking about that. And then their coach is Song, which is also now TSM's coach. So it's like people are like, wait a minute, maybe TSM can win an international event. Uh, so it'll be interesting. I think the other thing to note is that some teams might not seem as strong, or you might not know if they're actually strong. I mean, China has always seemed like a strong region. So it's going to be interesting to see again how they pair up against NA, if they make it out of the groups, how they go against Korea, like, things like that. And I want to say the same goes for the LMS. Um, if you are a veteran, if you've been watching esports, competitive league esports, you should have noticed that the LMS has been kind of like struggling the past 2 years. I mean, Flash Roll is such a famous organization. It's not been the same, right? They're not the famous scary Flash Wolves. So it's definitely interesting to see how maybe are they just struggling as a region? Maybe it's just
Hmm.
team. So I think seeing kind of like a packed like all-star dream team will be interesting for sure.
Yep, yep.
And I think it's also just a cool event where you get to see players you usually don't see. I mean, some of these players didn't even make it to Worlds, so it's like you wouldn't even be able to see them at Worlds, right? So I think
Hmm.
it's really really cool that we get the chances to see some of these players. Maybe some surprising things will happen, right?
Yeah. One of the fun things about these minor regions or overlooked regions, when Korea plays against them, when North America or Europe or LPL, when these teams that think they have it in the bag play against these minor regions, you're gonna have them picking crazy picks and getting really cocky. So you might be able to see like your Riven, like your favorite champion Riven, like go off, and like that's really fun. Or you might see them get wrecked because they get way too cocky in their team comp. Like we've seen that happen where they pick a team comp that makes absolutely no sense, and they like just can't finish the game because like, oh, we didn't have any wave clear or tower pushing abilities, and yeah, that didn't work out.
Yeah, yeah, no,
So there's
exactly.
always chances for just crazy comebacks, or even if they do get stomped, it's like, wow, we finally get to see like Faker's LeBlanc again, just completely pop off and go 15-2.
Yeah, it's like
So
maybe
there's a
maybe
good thing
Faker
for each.
decides to play Garen mid, which was played against them in the last All Stars,
Or Xin
or
Zhao mid.
Zinza. Like and that's what I think. Like I hope we see some of these crazier picks. I think teams will
We
definitely
will.
like try for some of them. But
Hmm.
again, I think that's why I recommend watching all the games. If you can't live, that's understandable. It's a lot of time commitment, but if you can watch the VODs afterwards, highly recommended. The casting team is there, and they're I think Riot Games is one of the best casting teams. And yes, it's a little bit biased, but that's at least my opinion on that. So I think we recommend watching all, but I think definitely watch the LCK versus EU. Watch the majority of NA. I mean, if you're from EU, definitely try to watch EU's games. I think they have a solid team. Kind of surprising that no member of G2 made it, but
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think it ends up being like kind of like popularity, and people were like, they've disappointed us yet again. No more.
The villains of EU, basically the bad
Yeah,
boys
the
of
bad
EU,
boys of the
right?
year.
Yeah. Another thing that we were talking about is watching the bottom teams face off. I don't think you mentioned that
Mm,
yet, right?
yeah,
So the bottom teams facing off is always really exciting because um I think both teams know that there's a chance and no one wants to be last place. No one wants to be known as a weakest region. So and what you typically see from minor regions is they're not all there yet when it comes to clean play and macro play. And again, you have like a conglomeration of players that haven't played together usually. So you get some crazy bloodbaths and some weird picks because suddenly they're not like, oh, there's only two viable champions in the top lane and only one mid lane champion, and you have to play that. Like they don't care about those rules. They're just like, I play Garen because it works, and I'm a good Garen player. And you see this crazy stuff happen, and it's so fun. So I'll definitely be watching like the Turkey versus CB LOL or Turkey versus Vietnam or those kind of matches. Those are gonna be really fun to watch.
yeah, yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, again, you might see Urgot again being pulled out, right? It's like picks
Mm-hmm.
that other teams. might even lose to because they don't know. They've never played, against these
Yeah.
picks in a competitive setting. So they might be like, wait, how do I what do I do? So I think again it's a very fun tournament throughout, and you might see definitely some things that are surprising. That's
Yeah.
why without a doubt I recommend watching like the majority of this tournament. I think it's gonna be pretty cool. And I mean we haven't even touched on half of it, but we'll talk about that soon. Um,
Another thing I want to mention is if you aren't watching it live, you're watching the VODs. Really easy way. If again you want to watch the VODs, but you're not going to watch all of them. If you go to the LOL event VODs subreddit, LOL event VODs, they cover like the EULCS, NALCS, and all of these like tournaments. And then there's also a voting system to talk about like where people that are watching can vote on what games are the best to watch without getting spoiled. So you can go to there and you can feel like, oh, apparently the LMS versus EU was a really, really good game and the most highly voted game to watch. So you could just watch one game per day or whatever you want to do. So you can see where these rate and you can be like, oh, LCK versus NA was not a highly rated match. LCK probably beat them and it was really boring. So just don't watch it,
yeah,
So that's another way to figure out which VODs you can watch if you just want some action and fun
for
games.
sure, for sure. So I think we need to go on to the biggest question that some of the viewers might have, and that is what are your predictions of who's gonna take the
Predictions for
tournament? Who's gonna win? Who's the best dream team?
NALCS
Oh yeah,
all the way. No doubt in my mind. No, but for real, if I had to put money on it, it has to be LCK. Their team just looks scary, like frighteningly strong.
yeah, yeah. They do.
It looks scarier than Samsung, like as a full 5.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they have one of the best, if not the best, bot lane in the world. Like Baker, like I don't know. It's tough. I'm gonna to not be boring. I think if LCK were to not win it, I think the next most likely candidates are gonna be the LPL, which is the Chinese team.
That's not how you say
Oh
NALCS.
yeah.
That's
I'm
weird.
sorry. Did I stutter? If I had to put money on it, I'm gonna say the NALCS is gonna just okay. First of all, I'm gonna say they hopefully make it out of groups, and then
Oh my
follow
gosh.
that.
We're gonna be so mean
Oh yeah,
if
and
we
then
don't.
follow that with they're gonna lose their first series against like the LCK or like one of the other teams. But yeah, so I think if it's not the LCK, it will most likely be the LPL. I think they do have a
Mhm.
strong team. I mean, you know, very strong individuals. Uzi's like such a awesome player that I hope he can win something else aside from a 1v1 tournament.
Poor Uzi.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
upsetting.
yeah. It's probably LCK and LPL, and because they are in, it's most likely if they both place first in their groups, then they won't match each other until the finals,
Yeah.
right? Because first place of groups A will face against second place of group B, and vice versa on the other side of the bracket. Um, if NA gets first, they probably will go all the way. To lose to beat
Yeah,
LCK.
yeah, of course.
And if I honestly think there's a good chance that NA does get first in their group, and that means they probably will be against EU LCS. So then NA versus EU will happen if they both get out of groups. Who knows? Maybe they could, if they both take second place, they could be in the finals. That how hype would that be?
Yeah, no, that'd be pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
but
That'd be pretty interesting for sure. I mean, again, and with these tournaments, like anything can happen, right? Like, I'm not gonna discredit like any of the teams. Like, granted, I don't think CBLOL is gonna necessarily win it. I hope they win at least the game, right? But
mhm.
it is made of surprises, right? I still think like
Yeah.
NA is strong, but I don't know. I just feel like the LCK and LPL are just like ever so slightly stronger.
I will say that the NALCS team seems just really random. Like we did say that there's a TSM synergy there, but Mike Young hasn't been with TSM for a split. You know, he's the newest member of TSM. Song is the newest member, but who cares? Song's just not just a coach, but Song's a coach, so it's not like a synergy between players on while they're
Right.
playing. I mean, you have a mixed up bot lane. It's Sneaky and Aframu who don't play together. I think they probably playing solo queue now together or something. Yeah, Bjergsen and Hanser. So you have that synergy there because they're both on TSM. But then Mike Young hasn't played with any of these guys either. So it's just like it's a really weird, like fun bag of players. A grab bag of players. Not a fun bag. That sounds dirty. A grab bag of players that there could be serious synergy issues that would be my excuse why NA is not actually the worst region and we just got
Oh yeah,
unlucky,
yeah.
even though we got drafted into like the best group
Yeah,
ever.
yeah, for sure. I agree with you. I think like mainly like I'm pretty sure that at least like Mike Young has played with Bjergsen like some solo queue. I don't know if like that has brought to like a synergy where you'd say, "Oh my god, mind readers," right? It definitely hasn't happened with Bjergsen, with Hunter. I mean, you know, it's like that hasn't happened with Sneaky, you know. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. I think that's why it's like also like super fun. But again, like we also mentioned, if this does not interest you, there's more. Right? There's another half. There's another tournament.
No way, Manny. There's more.
But wait, there is more. And that's I think maybe some of the most fun like tournament like yeah, events that you could witness, and it's the lovely 1v1 tournament. Do you wanna run us
hype?
through it, Sam?
Yeah, so again, if you forgot from episode 1, the 1v1 tournament, it starts with the rest of the games on Thursday and it ends on Saturday. But basically, there's only 16 representatives in the All-Star tournament, even though there's plenty more players in it. And basically, you start off in a bracket of 16 players, and until you get to the finals, and where it's a best of 3, I believe, best of 3 for the finals. But basically, starting from the beginning, it's best of 1. I think the semifinals are best of 3s, but it's crazy. It's 1v1s. It's super exciting. I believe if the rules haven't changed since before, it's like the first person to 100 CS, the first turret, or first blood. So that's always really exciting. Hopefully, we don't see some boring, just like farm, push, and don't die strategy. But at the same time, the players don't want to win that way either.
Yeah, I think for the majority of players, like they don't necessarily just want to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna farm to 100 CS, you know, because I feel like first of all it's just boring to play, and then that's also just it's supposed to be like fun, you know.
No one wants to have bragging rights and I can farm better than that pro player. No one wants to say that. No one wants that on their trophy, you know? So that's super exciting. We have the returning representative of last year's 1v1 tournament first place winner, which would be Uzi from oh my god,
yes.
RNG.
Royal Never Give Up.
So in China. And then it's interesting because I was looking at last year's format, which was actually a bigger 1v1 tournament. There's not that many people that are returning for this year. So that's really interesting. So we have Uzi, who got first place. Then you have Levi, who did pretty well in the 1v1 tournament. He actually went out against Uzi in the quarterfinals. And then you have Prey, Reckless, and Bjergsen, who are also part of the 1v1 that did not do well at all last year. So this is super, super exciting. And the games are really quick. So you can actually watch the whole 1v1 tournament because just looking at Thursday night, it starts in my time zone, 11:15 to about 11:45. So that's 30 minutes, 20 minutes, you know? It'll be really, really quick. So then once it's all done, you can actually watch the VODs and zip through all the 1v1s. It's super exciting. This is where all the pros are actually kind of taking it seriously, because you'll see pros like make agreements like, okay, we're just going to play these two champions, which is always fun if it's like a grudge match like that. But at the same time, they're going to be there to win it and get really, really intense. We have some really interesting matchups that we kind of want to highlight, especially for the first day. Do you
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
talk
for
about
sure.
that one?
So, I mean,
Those.
you mentioned it before. Uzi versus Levi. Levi himself lost to Uzi. He was doing great, and that's one of the first matches, right? That's they're both versing themselves.
Yep.
Levi is extremely great player, but Uzi's just such a mechanically like strong individual. I think it's gonna be so much fun to see these guys play. I think also someone you left out was Faker. Faker has never made it past like I think
Mm-hmm.
like the first round or like preliminaries. Like he's never made it into quarters. And the reason I also say that is because in the interview I was talking about earlier, Faker was like, "Yeah, I think my main goal is just to make it at least a quarters." And it's like, "Oh, so you just want to at least win one match?" Okay, man. So I think it's super funny. So that's one of the big ones. I think the other one is actually going to be Sneaky, Sneaky's game because
Mm.
we haven't seen Sneaky, play in it because he hasn't been in All Stars. I don't want to say ever, but I think it's almost always been double lift instead of Sneaky.
Yeah.
But Sneaky's gonna be playing as BRTT or Brett or Bert. I'm not sure. Not sure exactly how to pronounce his name, his ID, but they're both 80 carries. Brett is from the CBLOL, the Red Candidates, if I'm not mistaken. So it's gonna be really interesting. And I mean, like Sam was mentioning, it's a quick tournament, right? It's a quick match. It's 100 CS. Usually, that's when it goes long, right? That's when it goes the full like 5 minutes, because they're pro players and
Mm-hmm,
they can
mm-hmm.
see us like crazy. It's like that's as long as they'll go. But like it'll usually be you go through picks and bans, because you do ban, and then that's it, right? Like you just go into the game, you play. I think like that one might be one of the most interesting. Like those two matches might be the most interesting ones in the first round. Um, the other ones are going to be still interesting, but it's like I mean, it's like for example, Faker versus Vert, a top laner, and it's like you know, hopefully, I mean, Faker's most likely going to be dominating that, so. Not knock
Most
on wood.
likely. And then
Yeah,
you're just like,
knock on wood.
okay.
I don't know. I don't want to jinx him, but I think it's interesting. I think I want to highlight those. I mean, obviously Bjergsen as well, just because he's another NA mid laner
Mm-hmm.
against Fofo, who is LMS's mid laner for this year. So it'll be interesting. I think there's some players that you might think, oh, they're not that good mechanically, or there's a couple supports that you'd say, well, there's no way they'd beat a mid laner, but we'll see, right? I think that's where it comes to be like super interesting.
Yeah. It's just super hype. It's fun. And like seriously, because you have only a few, you really have like the the huge, the big personalities and the big players of each region. So if you follow LMS, you're like, oh, I know these two and I want them to win. If you follow GPL, you're like, you know these people. For me, it's like NA and EU. It's like, oh my gosh, Bjergsen, oh, that's gonna be so exciting. Oh my god, Power of Evil, oh my god, that's gonna be so exciting. Reckless, oh, that's gonna be super exciting. Sneaky, oh, like you know these people, so you get so hype and it's so painful when they lose. Hopefully they don't all get knocked out in the first round. Definitely
Yeah.
watch 1v1s.
Yeah, and again,
Definitely
if
watch
for some
1v1s.
reason you're on the East Coast and it's midnight and you have work, class, whatever, and you can't stay up, like we were talking about before, you can probably just watch the VODs no longer than 30 minutes per like round. So definitely would recommend that as well. So
Cool. All right, we got anything else we want to talk about with these all-star matchups?
I mean if you do want more information, I know that we didn't really want to bore you with like too many details. Don't forget to check out the LOL Esports website. They have a lot of stuff on the All-Star event. They have a meet teams with little bios and stuff. There's also a full schedule in case you want to look for a particular match. And you can always watch the games themselves either on Twitch or on YouTube.
Cool. Yeah. Again, it is going to be this weekend starting Thursday, December 7th, going on till Sunday, actually. I think I misspoke before. Sunday, December 10th. You can find it all on the Riot channels and stuff like that and the VODs. All the links will be in the episode description. So just to close out this episode, we are now on iTunes and Google Podcasts. So that's super, super exciting. We have our YouTube as well. I'm not sure if we're going to keep it on the Lola YouTube channel. There'll be links again into the episode description. YouTube, if you like, I don't know. I like audio form. The YouTube format doesn't actually have that much extra. We just put like some pretty backgrounds on them. But you can watch it on YouTube if that's your choice of medium. And then let's see, where else are we? We're on SoundCloud. If you like SoundCloud, and you can kind of like comment on specific spots. Either way, whatever you're watching, if you are enjoying this, I know it's a little early to be asking favors from you guys, but if you are enjoying this and want to help us grow so we can kind of do more and be, give us that little encouragement and boost to just continue putting out awesome product like this, please share with people that you think would benefit from this. If you guys think that you have a friend that kind of doesn't watch esports and you think they would like it, let them know and send this podcast to them so we can get a little bigger following to help us do more. So we'd really, really appreciate that. Also, giving us ratings on iTunes and stuff really, really helps us and gets the awareness out for this podcast. But besides that, if you want to contact us, you want to talk to us, you want to disagree with us on Twitter or anything like that, our Twitter handles are, mine is at justcasual9, Manny's is at manster415. Again, those links will be in the episode description. Is there anything else I'm missing, Manny?
No, again, super grateful if you've been listening to this podcast since the very beginning. It's only been 4 episodes, but like Sam was saying, I think each episode is so important. Like, we love this, and I hope you guys are enjoying the content, and I hope we can bring you even more. So
yeah. Cool. Yep. So you have just listened to the Eye of the Watchers podcast, giving you all the information you need to get hyped about League of Legends esports. I am Sam. Here I have with me Manny. And that is it for this episode. Until next time.
Bye.